You mentioned something yesterday when we had lunch about an experience in Russia. You were going to a conference where there's a basement and something. Can you?
Yes, yes.
Because it was related in some way.
Yes, there was a UFO conference in 1991 in Moscow. And I heard from an American psychiatrist whom I had met previously in an international conference. That's the way to get information. Go to international conferences, because they're never published, and you get incredible information. And we were only 4 from the Western world. It was 400 people, and there was an American general who was, afterwards I found out, he was the previous chief of the U.S. intelligence in the army. He was in audience. Then there was this psychiatrist, and then there was an American lady journalist, and me. And they gave information. It was just in the Soviet time, just before Soviet Union collapsed. And you could feel the energy. There was one, Edvard Naumov, who was giving a lecture, and the energy that, something is going to happen, something big, good in Russia. It was, you could feel it. It was incredible. And it was opened by General Popovich, who was a cosmonaut, whose wife, Marina Popovich, I had met before in a German conference, UFO conference. And she was a test pilot and president of scientific women in the world, and a colonel and whatever. And then the chairman of the conference was Dr. Ashasa, whom I afterwards found out was chief of the Soviet Navy intelligence. Can you imagine? These kind of people are giving lectures for the general public. Anybody could come. It didn't cost anything. And I was sitting next to a lady whom I had met again in a German conference, and she was a radio engineer and could speak English, and I don't speak Russian. So I said, would you please, at least, interpret something of the main points, what they're saying. After the pause, all of a sudden she left, and 2 men came next to me. Wait a minute, KGB or something? I don't know. And they were kind of stiff like this. And when the other one went to the probably toilet or something out, I asked the other one. I said, "You're a military." He just looked at me. I said, "I've been married to 2, a Finnish major and a Norwegian major diplomat. I can smell them. They have a stiff neck like this. What is your grade?" So he said, "I'm a colonel." And I said, "What about this?" "Oh, he's my boss, a general." I thought, well, interesting, And ever since I was with them, I couldn't go any place alone. Well, maybe that was also for security. And so that was interesting. But the information that came from that was incredible, because at the end of the conference they said, we would like to show you something. And sure, I'm always, ready for anything new, because that way you can develop, I think. They took me to the cellar, and they had this big steel doors like you have in the banks. And I thought, where in the hell am I going? A huge hall full of UFO pictures all over, a big Soviet Union map with needles on it. And I said, what are those needles for? Well, you don't have to look at the... So I looked, of course. I thought they could be landing sites of UFOs, but of course I don't know. But then there was a story with pictures of Anatoly Malchev, and I was flabbergasted, because I have been lecturing on Anatoly Malchev, and here I see his original pictures and story. He was a woodworker in 1975 in the woods, and a UFO landed. And humanoids came out and told him, "Hey, we'll take you for a ride if you want to come." And he was, a brave man, and he went with them. They left, and they went past the moon. On the other side of the moon there were lights. So he asked, "What are they?" "Well, we have our bases there." Then they flew maybe for 2 hours, and then they landed on a planet, on another planet somewhere. He didn't know where. And when he came out, he got the shock of his life, because on this planet were all his dead relatives and friends. So that was the biggest secret the Soviet Union had, that there is no death. Can you imagine a military secret like that? And why did they show that to me? Later I asked, when last year in the States in a conference, I met the lady journalist. I said, "Did they take you to that cellar?" "No." It was only me. Why? The others were Americans, and Russian-American relations maybe were not the best, but Finland has been part of Russia, so I don't know, was that the reason or what? But they wanted me to know that they know militarily that there is no death, and UFOs are dealing with the things of death and dying. Now, I thought that was flabbergasting, don't you?
Yeah.
And the other lecturers there they were members of the Soviet Academy of Sciences, and very, very scientific. Now, we could never in Scandinavia have a seminar like that the generals and colonels come and show state secrets.
Yeah.
But that's why I think somebody has said that the light comes from the north and spirituality comes from Russia. Because it seems that, at least in this respect, that is what is happening. The change has been enormous in Russia.
When we look at Russia and the US, the Russians have always been very much into the biophysics research, and the other one into the biochemistry. And you say the spiritual side of Russia, they have much more with all this, you can say, auras and frequencies and vibrations. They are that's natural for them.
Yeah.
Because they didn't get all the money, the researchers, they only got for doing the research.
Right.
So they were real researchers. So actually, and wasn't it Brezhnev who was talking to the Americans and saying, we must never invent such weapons. He tried to make them...
It wasn't invent, it was in 1975, he was at the UN General Assembly, and he was trying to get the General Assembly to forbid weapons which are so terrible that we can't even imagine. And of course he was referring to the weapons of mass destruction by electromagnetic fields. And many nations, of course, were with him, but then Americans claimed, after a report that I have read from Russia, that since 1948 they have had no new weapons of mass destruction, so they didn't accept it. Now that, of course, is not true.